I'm James Lynch, and this is my stock report for UFC 319, taking a look at the biggest winners and losers from the event. And the biggest stock riser on this card, and people will debate me on this, but it has to be Hamzat Chimayv. Dominant performance in the main event. I know there's people who didn't think the fight was very entertaining, but the facts are the facts. This was a total domination from a challenger, something we haven't really seen in a long time. I was trying to remember the last title fight where someone just completely shut out the champion like this. Let's go look at the stats here. Dricus du Plessis, only 13 significant strikes in the entire fight. Chimayv had 37. And you look at the takedowns, 12 of 17. Just total domination. Dricus had basically nothing for him in this fight. There was a little moment in the 5th round, but this was a complete shutout there by Hamzat Chimayv. He won every single round, looked dominant doing so, and kind of gave us the question after the fight of who's going to beat this guy. I mean, your stock can't go up much more than that. Like I said on the post show, it would have been nice to see him get the finish. I think, and everyone's 100% happy, but that's maybe the only critique there. But Chimayv looked like a minus 1100 favorite tonight, not a minus 260 favorite. His stock automatically goes up the highest on this card because he's the new champ. He just took out a champ who defended his belt a couple times, and he did so in dominant fashion. There's no questions asked. Hamzat Chimayv is the biggest stock riser after tonight. It'll be interesting to see what they want to do. I know there's talk about him maybe getting a quick turnaround. There's a number of interesting options. Is it a Reiner to Ritter? Is it a Fluffy Hernandez? As they obviously the Kayao and Imavov fight would probably be cutting it too close. So we'll see what they decide to do as far as the next title challenger. But we'll see how this new era of the middleweight division looks as Hamzat Chimayv is the new champion. But biggest stock riser on this card was him for sure. Now, some people watching this in the comments will probably say, no, James, this guy should be the biggest stock riser. And I think you've got a strong case here, and that is Lerone Murphy. Lerone Murphy knocking out Aaron Pico in the 1st round. Let's be honest here. Lerone Murphy had a ton to lose here. He is fighting a guy who does not have a single UFC fight, who really didn't, I mean, coming over from Bellator, he wasn't even like a former Bellator champion or title challenger. All this guy had was a ton of hype. And if he would have lost, it would have looked really bad. His big win streak would have been out the window. There's a lot to lose here for Lerone Murphy. So he takes the fight on short notice. Remember, Pico is the one who was supposed to fight on this card always, right? It was supposed to be him and I think it was supposed to be him and Evoyev, or on one of the cards maybe. Either way, Pico knew he was fighting soon. Murphy didn't, so he kind of took it on short notice. And Pico's looking good in this fight, but Murphy knocks him out. And that's the key thing here. Nothing else matters. The only thing that matters is that Murphy gets a spinning elbow knockout win. And now we're talking about a title shot with Volk. Like, who would have thought that before this fight? I know people say, oh, Dana said it was the #1 contenders fight. Yeah, but you know what? Things can change. Maybe he can go in a different direction. But the fact that Murphy finished here, I mean, Murphy had the best possible performance you could have to earn yourself a title shot. He absolutely did. There's no question about it. So just by virtue of him most likely getting the next title shot, Dana at the post-fight presser saying, hey, it looks like Volk, I think he said, I quote, I love it, the idea of Volk and Lerone Murphy in December. That alone puts him as one of the biggest stock risers. And again, if you want to just go off pure entertainment, Murphy would be the biggest stock riser. But again, challenger dominating the former champion over 5 rounds and getting the win and not taking any damage, that has to be the #1 stock riser. So I had Chimayv at #1, Murphy at #2. So that I think that's the big debate of this video, is who should be #1, who should be #2. I'm going with Chimayv as #1. Now, #3, I think this is also one that I don't think I'm going to get a lot of pushback on as opposed to the other two. It's got to be Carlos Prates. And for me, it's not the fact that, yes, he was a minus 190 favorite. It's the fact he became the first fighter in the UFC to finish Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal had been knocked out before years ago against Kevin Holland at middleweight on the regional scene. But for Prates to go out there and finish, especially after coming off the loss he had against Ian Gary, this puts him right back in the driver's seat as far as him being a contender in the welterweight division. So Prates, again, getting it done, looking good. I think even prior to him knocking Neal out, he was looking great. His knockout power is something to behold in that division, and another spinning back elbow knockout there. So very impressive there for Prates. His stock goes up big time in the welterweight division. Okay, honorable mention. I'll give one here. Alex Hernandez, who's on a bit of a win streak. So the big thing with Hernandez, obviously, huge underdog here. He gets a 1st round finish, knocks out Chase Hooper. Plus 315 underdog. I think he was like plus 1,000 by knockout or something I was seeing. But look at this. 3 straight wins now. This definitely getting some attention. I mean, he could be getting a ranked opponent next, and he's kind of had a weird career. He's dabbled a bit at featherweight. He's had some weird losses like the Moises and getting choked out by Moicano. But Hernandez at 32, I mean, it's kind of now or never. He kind of needed this. He loses this fight. Maybe he doesn't get signed by the UFC again. I don't know. But because he had 2 decisions prior to that. So Hernandez's stock gets an honorable mention here just for the simple fact that he probably kept his job, and now we're talking about bigger fights for him with him knocking out Chase Hooper, who Hooper had a nice win streak going into this. So very big win there for Alex Hernandez, the great, as they call him. Okay, biggest stock droppers. Again, a couple different ways you could have gone with this one. biggest stock dropper is not the person you see on the thumbnail. I went a different direction. Biggest stock dropper is Sakura. Now, here's a guy that had a title shot against Alexander Pantoja in his UFC debut. Some people upset by that, but I get it. Former Rizin champ. Rizin has some pretty good flyweights. I think that was fair to give him the title shot right off the bat. And what happened? He got dominated. Okay, no big deal. He fights Tim Elliott. You're minus 300 favorite. You probably win this fight. Nope, doesn't happen. Tim Elliott, doesn't matter that he's had a year and a bit layoff. Doesn't matter he's 38. Doesn't matter he's plus 250. He gets it done. I would have had Elliott in the stock risers, but like I don't really know where he kind of fits in the division right now. Like I don't think even with this win he's going to go on some crazy run. So I didn't mention him. Maybe you give him an honorable mention off the stock risers now that I think about it. But whatever, I missed my chance. Sakura is the biggest stock dropper. For the simple fact was he was the biggest betting favorite on the main card. He was actually a bigger favorite than Chimayv was over DDP. And he doesn't get it done. And the optics are this. He's 0-2 in the UFC right now, and he's 31 years old. Like, where do you go from here? The Pantoja loss, I can understand. Maybe you were, it was too much. It was your debut. You're fighting Pantoja, who everyone knows is one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. Nothing against Tim Elliott. I think Elliott's a great fighter, but like you lose to him and you get finished. Not a good look there. And he gets finished in the second round, just like the fight before. His stock goes down big time. He had a lot of stock for the simple fact that people felt like he was one of the best flyweights in the world outside of the UFC. That's all gone now. Now it's about just keeping his job. I don't even know who he fights next, but his stock has gone down big time. Sakura, biggest stock dropper. No questions asked. Biggest favorite on the main card, ends up getting finished in the second round. Now, this is where people might put the biggest stock dropper, and that's Aaron Pico. But here's the thing. We got to be honest with ourselves here. Yeah, he got knocked out. It's not good. It's not good for a debut. Absolutely not. Even Pitbull and Patchy Mix didn't get finished in their debuts. But he was looking good prior to that. I'll give him his credit. I think Pico looked actually quite good leading up to the knockout. I thought he was, landing some good shots. I think he got a takedown in the fight. I have to go double check that. But I thought he looked fine. It's just he got caught, and that's the problem. And unfortunately with Pico now, it's a thing with him, right? He's been finished 3 times. It says 4 on his resume there, but one of those was a shoulder injury. He's been knocked out 3 times. Looked like a pretty bad knockout. Dana White, the post-fight press conference, talking about him having to go to the hospital, and he has a concussion. Who knows how long he's out for? He's 28, but he's already been knocked out 3 times in brutal fashion. That's going to be a thing with him going forward. I suggested him and Dan Ige next. I think that's a good fight. Ige does have knockout power too, but he's also a little bit older. We'll see. But yeah, Pico, just for the simple fact that going into this fight, and I can find the articles if you want me to bring up the proof, he was talking about beating Volk. He was talking about fighting for a title, and his fans were talking about best USA wrestler of all time and Golden Gloves boxer and all this stuff. He's going to be a big problem for the division. And I kept telling people, like, he hasn't fought great opposition. Like, those things may all be true, but you got to prove it against good competition. Kind of proved my point tonight. He couldn't even, and Lerone Murphy hadn't had a finish in 5 fights, and he finishes Aaron Pico. Just the optics don't look good. And I think for Pico, like, it's a big stock drop for him because if he won this fight, he might have got a title shot. I don't think there's a question, I don't think that's an argument at all. I think that could have happened for sure. So Pico could have got a title shot off this. And now it's like, who does he even fight next? Like, what way do you go here, right? Like, we'll have to see. So, again, we saw Patchy Mix now fighting the KSW champ coming over. He's fighting the KSW champ. Like, they obviously don't, it doesn't seem like they're trying to like do too much with him. Pico could get the similar treatment here. So yeah, Pico, big stock dropper here, was favored, ended up losing, not good. And then third biggest stock dropper has got to be Chase Hooper. Nice win streak coming into this one. Where's Chase Hooper? And you get knocked out in the first round. Like, I thought Hooper was doing okay, looked pretty good in there early on, but then he gets knocked out, and it's like that whole win streak's out the window now, right? He had a couple wins. He had 3 wins, 2 finishes, 1 decision there, but then gets knocked out here. He's back to the drawing board. He's still 25, lots of time to work on things. He's kind of been growing up in the UFC, but just the fact he was one of the biggest favorites on this card and he gets finished in the first round, his stock absolutely goes down with that. Okay, I'll give 2 honorable mentions on the stock droppers. Unfortunately, we got to put DDP as a stock dropper. Now, I said this on the live stream, like, Chimayv could just be that good. Like, maybe he does this to Anthony Hernandez. Maybe he does this to RDR. Who knows? Maybe those guys also have like no output whatsoever. But it's the fact that DDP no longer has the belt. He got completely dominated in this fight. It almost reminded me a bit of Islam beating Charles, right? Like, just with how dominant it was, although Islam finished the fight. But yeah, it's just like, this was a guy that was on the cusp of, if he won this fight, we're talking about him being the greatest ever, one of the greatest ever potentially. And then he loses, and now he's back to square one, and who knows who he fights next. But first loss in the UFC, first time we've seen him dominated this badly. Like, he's been in trouble in certain fights, but like nothing to this degree. So you have to put him as an honorable mention as a stock dropper. I'm not putting that as an outright stock dropper because, like, I still think, like, people know how good he is. And, first guy to finish Adesanya in the UFC by submission, finished Whitaker, finished Brunson. I think he still beats most fighters in this weight class. So I don't think his stock's taken too much of a drop. So that's why I give him the honorable mention. Then the other one I'll mention here quickly is just Jeff Neal, just because of his age. He's 34. He's now been knocked out. That's tough to deal with at this point. He's now lost 2 of 3. Actually, he's lost 3 of 4. Where do you go from here at 34? He's entertaining. We obviously like him. And, I thought he put on a good performance prior to him getting finished. But his stock gets an honorable mention because it's like, where does he go from here at 34? So we'll have to see there. So there you go. That's my stock report. Let me know in the comments your top 3 stock risers and your bottom 3 stock droppers. Would love to hear from you in the comments. Just give me those and we'll have a fun debate about that. We don't need to nitpick at every little decision that I made here. That just makes it for more fun of a discussion. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching and I'll see you next time.